What's up, besties and homies? It's your girl Aisha checking in, back with another video. If you're new to the channel, welcome to Strong Friends Check-In Podcast. So I wanted to check in with you for a little bit to talk about one of my favorite subjects, narcissism. I hear a lot of people in our community saying that we should stop talking about narcissism. And I hear Black women in particular telling other Black women to be quiet, that they cannot identify narcissistic traits because they are not licensed professional counselors or board certified psychiatrists. And I'm here to tell you that that's just not true. You don't have to be licensed or you don't have to be a psychiatrist to identify narcissistic traits. People can identify the traits. That doesn't mean that we're diagnosing people. That's not what that means. You actually have to have formal paperwork and you have to assess someone and you have to have the credentials to diagnose people. So it's interesting to me that people are saying that we shouldn't discuss it, because I remember back in 2009 when I first found out that I was a victim of narcissistic abuse. That's when I started talking about it, back in 2009. But I remember nobody was talking about it then because most Black people had never even heard the term. They didn't know what NPD was. I mean, they had no idea. And so we would just reduce narcissistic behavior to something else. Oh, he's stressed over his job, or he can't express himself. He hasn't been allowed to be vulnerable. And it was just all of these excuses. You know, it was mom's fault. It was the girlfriend's fault. It was the wife's fault. It was the ex-wife's fault. It was the dog's fault. It was the cat's fault. Right? And so now our community is becoming more educated on domestic violence and narcissistic personality disorder. And so now Black women no longer want to talk about it. But what it makes me think about is an experience that I had back then. My ex's mother had called me to her house to talk about some of the problems that we were having. And during our conversation, I said, he's abusive. And she replied, okay, but do you have to say that? That was her response. Okay, but do you have to say that? So that is the sentiment in our community. It's like, even if it's true, even if you're not falsely accusing someone, don't say it. Just don't talk about it. That's problematic. It's dangerous. And I believe that toxic mentality, that dysfunctional mentality, has contributed to the increase in femicide rates in our community. Because when we don't talk about it, then that allows abusers to fly under the radar. It allows narcissists to hide, which is what they do. It's how they wreak havoc on the community, is that they hide behind other people. They hide behind their false ego and their image, and they work extremely hard to keep the facade. They work extremely hard to gaslight others and to deflect and to project and to manipulate and to triangulate so that they can continue to abuse. And so I think it is more dangerous to stop talking about it, to tell people don't talk about it. You can't talk about narcissism because you're not qualified. Well, let me just tell you, as someone who studied psychology for 6 years formally in college, I'm like a couple credits away from earning a master's degree in professional counseling, okay? In addition to my master's degree in business administration. I also minored in psychology in undergraduate school. In addition to that, I study psychology on my own time. I'm self-educated as well because I'm fascinated with the human mind. I've also worked in health and human services for over 10 years. So I've worked in the field, okay? So as somebody who has all of those credentials and all of that experience, I'm here to tell you that you don't need to be licensed or board certified to identify narcissistic traits. So we can just cut that out. Now, it's quite obvious to me why some men would want us to stop talking about it, right? That's quite obvious to me. And don't get me wrong, women are narcissists too. I mean, in my opinion, my biological mother was a narcissist. That's my opinion. I don't have to be licensed to state my opinion. Based on my knowledge of her, my entire life, I think she was a narcissist. Okay? So women can be narcissists too. But the reason why I focus on men is because I'm a woman and I'm trying to help other women to come up out of that sunken place, because Stockholm syndrome is real in our community. So we have a lot of narcissists and a lot of enablers, people who enable that behavior, and people who have been victims of abuse, who have taken the role of protecting their abusers. And so you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to make that observation, okay? And, you know, it's interesting when I hear people say, oh, you know, just because you have a college degree, that doesn't make you smart, and they try to discredit that. But I was smart before I earned a college degree. I've always been observant. Even as a little child, I sat and I watched people. The most that I've ever talked is on this YouTube channel in my entire life, because I sit and I observe people. And so I've just always been interested in the human mind and human behavior. And see, I think the women need to be called out, because a lot of Black women, too many of them, in my opinion, have made themselves comfortable playing the role of enabler. See, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want anybody to expose their brothers, their sons, their fathers, right? And so they would rather protect the image of their loved one than to do what is right. But they attend church every Sunday, hooping and hollering and pretending to be holy, but yet they enable narcissists to wreak havoc in the community. These are the same women who post hashtags on social media, protect Black women and Me Too, but they don't call out the bad behaviors of their uncles, brothers, cousins, sons, fathers. And see, I can talk the talk because I walk the walk, because I have cousins who were like brothers to me. And if you ask them, they will tell you that I call them out. And I don't enable them. I've never enabled them. And I've always advised them to treat women right. And if I saw them doing something that was wrong, I spoke to them about it. And I've even been in a situation where I actually had to step between one of my cousins and his girlfriend at the time. I did it. I stepped in between them. And he said to me, if you don't move, I'm going to punch you. And I said, well, you got to punch me, baby. You got to punch me, because I'm not going to let you punch her. That's the type of woman I am. That's the type of woman I am. So I not only talk the talk, I walk the walk. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And if it's right, it's right. I don't care who it is. Because when I stand before the Lord on Judgment Day, I have to answer for what I did. I have to answer for my decisions. See, I can't pick and choose when I want to be black. And I can't pick and choose when I want to be a woman. I have to be that all the time. So that's the problem I have with it. And there are also more sinister dynamics happening in some of these families where these women have had inappropriate relationships with the men in their families. And some of them have been victims of SA, and some of them have just been involved in incest, right? And because of that, they are protecting the men in their family. And some of them are actually jealous. Like they want to fight the girlfriend and all of this stuff. I've seen it. I've seen it and I have experienced it. So if you get involved with a man and his sisters like have their claws out, and or maybe there might be one sister who's after you, like she just hates you for absolutely no reason. You've been nothing but pleasant and kind and mannerable and respectful, but she hates your guts. That might be the reason why. So we don't need to stop talking about narcissism. We need to continue to talk about narcissism. And if you think someone has narcissistic traits, it's okay for you to say that. There's no law against you stating your opinion. We're entitled to our opinions, right? People need to understand that researchers, legit researchers in the field of psychology and in the field of psychiatry are now calling America the nation of narcissists, because there is an epidemic of this behavior of people being ruled by their egos and thinking that they have the right to violate others, mostly those that they view as weaker, the most vulnerable in our community, women and children and the elderly. It has become an epidemic. Trophy culture, I think, in my opinion, has contributed to that, where everybody gets a trophy. No matter how good you are or how bad you are, everybody gets a trophy, right? And so now people have this false sense of entitlement. And then, of course, hip hop culture doesn't help. The misogyny that we see in the culture, that doesn't help, because it's being promoted and pushed. And women are active participants in it. The same women that post hashtags. Active participants. They see their brother beating a woman. That's their brother. But then they turn around and post a hashtag about protect Black women on social media. So that's the hypocrisy. And as long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to call it out. I'm going to call it out. And I don't care whether people like it or not. Because the fact of the matter is, those who have been chosen to do good, to fight the good fight of faith, are often disliked. I mean, it's been that way since the beginning of time. MLK had a whole lot of haters before he passed away. He didn't become a hero until after he passed away. And that's the common theme that we see in our community. And don't get it twisted. I don't want to be a shero. I'm just doing what God has called me to do. And I've always been a person that stood on business. I've always been a person that spoke truth. Always. I've always been real. And so that's pretentious to a pretentious person. Fake people don't recognize real. They say, oh, just be quiet, just be quiet. You know, oh, well, she's a troublemaker. She's an instigator because I spoke the truth. Well, I'm a troublemaker then. I'm an instigator. I'm whatever you want to call me. Guess what? I'll be that. I'll be that. Because God has been too good to me for me to just sit back, to sit idly by and not speak about the dysfunction in my community. He's been too good to me. I owe him that. And I know that there are a lot of Black women who are stuck in these vicious cycles of abuse and in this vicious cycle of dysfunction who want to break free. They want to be delivered. They want to live and experience abundant life, not worldly success, not materialism, but they want to experience God's love and his peace, the peace that surpasses all understanding, right? The peace that makes you secure in yourself and not have you wanting to look outside of yourself for validation from others. That peace, God's peace, the peace of the Holy Spirit. A lot of women want that. They crave that. And so they want to break free. And you got to start with knowledge. You start with knowledge. The Bible says, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. So it starts there. So we have to educate ourselves. And I would say to the women who are saying, stop talking about it, why does that bother you? See, that's the thing right there. Why does that bother you? It would only bother you if you are in fact a narcissist trying to hide, or you're an enabler. It doesn't bother me. People can talk about pedophiles. People can talk about narcissists. Doesn't bother me at all because I don't relate to those individuals. I don't identify with them. So if it bothers you, ask yourself why it bothers you. Perhaps you identify with those predators, those demons, because that's what they are. They're demons. So I just wanted to put that out there to say, let's just keep talking about it. I'm so glad Black people are talking about narcissism. I don't know what to do. Let's keep talking about it. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't talk about it, because guess what? If you've experienced it, then that means you got to shut up. You can't share your testimony. You can't share your testimony. You can't help anybody else. You can't talk about it, right? Because we can't talk about it. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. This is not new. That's been the thing in the Black community for the longest time. Oh, if you're a victim of SA or you're a survivor of SA, don't talk about it. Guess what? I'm going to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. So if you don't want to hear it, this is not the place for you. So I just want to encourage my beautiful women. That's really all I had to say. I want to encourage my beautiful women to continue to state your opinion, speak freely. We live in a country where supposedly we have free speech. Don't let anybody intimidate you or tell you that you can't discuss something because you're not formally educated. These will be the same people to turn around and discredit people for being formally educated, right? The same people who say that college degrees don't matter, they'll turn around and tell you to stop talking about abuse because you're not a psychiatrist. It's BS. Anyway, that's my message. Know that you're worthy. Know that you're loved. Please like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, it's your girl, Aisha, signing off.